Welcome to the talk on speech rhythm in multiethnolectal Zurich German. My name is Morand and I'm speaking also on behalf of Melissa Bruno, Nora Julmi, Sandra Schwab and Stephan Schmid. So we're interested in speech rhythm and multiethnolects. What are multiethnolects? According to Klein, they're one type of ethnolect that several minority groups use collectively, but also members of the dominant ethnic group, especially young people, might share it with the ethnic minorities. It is therefore the expression of a new kind of group identity. Multiethnolects in German-speaking Switzerland differ significantly from traditional Swiss German dialects. Tissot and colleagues claim that they differ with regard to rhythm, amongst other things, but a sociophonetic investigation of this phenomenon is lacking so far. We therefore investigated speech rhythm in multiethnolectal Zurich German, so we wanted to see whether the speech rhythm between speakers of multiethnolectal Zurich German differs from speakers of traditional Zurich German. Let's take a look at speech rhythm in general. Most of us are probably familiar with the so-called isochrony hypothesis, established by Pike and further developed by Abercrombie, according to which most languages are either stress-timed or syllable-timed. However, acoustic studies falsified this hypothesis, and this is why new rhythm metrics have been proposed. These metrics are based on the variability duration of vocalic and consonantal intervals, on the standard deviation or the variation coefficient. And here are the ones we used in our studies. So we looked at %V, we looked at the normalized pairwise variability index for vowels and consonants, and we also looked at varco-V and varco-C. What do we know about speech rhythm in Swiss German? So Swiss German here is used as an umbrella term for the Alemannic dialect spoken in German-speaking Switzerland, and Zurich German is one of these dialects. So traditional Swiss German dialects have a distinctive vowel quantity in stressed syllables and show vowel reduction in unstressed syllables. And there is phonetic evidence that traditional Zurich German behaves like stress-timed languages. So we think that this vocalic variability of Swiss German dialects could become socially meaningful in terms of sociophonetic indexicality, because this staccato rhythm, so the syllable-timed rhythm, appears to be a salient feature of ethnolectal Swiss German. However, this impressionistic evaluation of ethnolectal speech as being more syllable-timed compared to the traditional dialects lacks an empirical validation so far. We therefore correlate acoustic measurements from a number of speakers with rating scores of how multiethnolectal they are perceived. And we came up with 3 research hypotheses. First of all, we assume that the more speakers sound multiethnolectal, the higher their %V is. In addition, we assume that the more speakers sound multiethnolectal, the lower their varco-V and NPVI is. This is both due to less vowel reduction in unstressed syllables and smaller distinctions between long and short vowels. And this both contributes to the perceptual impression of a syllable-timed rhythm. Last but not least, we don't think that there's going to be a relationship between how multiethnolectal a speaker sounds and their varco-C and NPVI-C. Because differences of consonantal duration variability is usually an index for different consonant cluster complexity, and we used the same material for all of our speakers. So in this table you see a summary of our expectations represented by the arrows. So we expect higher %V for multiethnolectal Zurich German speakers as opposed to more traditional Zurich German speakers. We expected lower varco-V and NPVI-V, and we don't expect a difference for varco-C and NPVI-C. Let me introduce you to our speakers. We recorded 48 adolescents at 2 different schools in the city of Zurich, and most of them spoke additional or other languages than Zurich German before they entered kindergarten. Some of these languages are listed here, and we can see there are typical syllable-timed languages as well as typical stress-timed languages. We recorded read speech in a battery of 100 carefully designed test sentences, and they were read in random order. For the adolescents at a different school, at a third school, rated short speech samples of the recorded speakers. These speech samples were rated on a 7-point Likert scale on how multiethnolectal their speech sounds. So from 1, not at all multiethnolectal, up to 7, completely multiethnolectal. These speech samples were not taken from the read speech, they were taken from a picture description task to make sure that content-wise they are similar. The listener listened to all these samples in random order. They listened to 1 sample per speaker, but this means that the rating scores equal the mean values of all raters. So let me show you these rating scores in the next slide. On the y-axis we have the rating scores from 1 not at all multiethnolectal up to 7 completely multiethnolectal, and on the x-axis you see the different speakers here sorted according to their rating scores. So you can see there's a continuum from traditional Zurich German on the left-hand side up to multiethnolectal Zurich German on the right-hand side. How did we analyze our data? The recordings of the read speech were segmented automatically, and afterwards segmentation was checked manually. In total, we excluded almost 40% of our sentences, and sentences were excluded from analysis, for example, if speakers said something different than presented, or they hesitated, or they inserted pauses. Nevertheless, we analyzed almost 3,000 sentences, and as you can see, this varies a little bit by speaker. Let me show you the results for the syllable rate. So here, syllable rate is measured as syllables per second, and as you can see, or as you can probably see from the figure 1, there's a significant negative correlation between syllable rate and rating scores. So adolescents rated as speaking more multiethnolectal spoke more slowly. So again, on the y-axis you have the rating scores, 7 being completely multiethnolectal, and on the x-axis you have syllable rate varying between 3 syllables per second up to 6 syllables per second. Because of these results, we decided to use the rate normalized rhythm metrics for vocalic and consonantal intervals. When we look at the variability of the duration of vocalic intervals, you can see in the table our results and also the arrows representing our expectations. We found no significant correlation between %V and rating scores. We did, however, find a significant negative correlations between Varco V and the rating scores, as well as between NPVI-V and the rating scores. So if we take a closer look at the negative correlation between the normalized pairwise variability index for vowel duration and the rating scores, we can see that adolescents rated as speaking more multiethnolectal showed less duration variability for vowels, as here depicted in figure 2. On the y-axis, again, you have the rating scores, 7 being completely multiethnolectal, and on the x-axis, you have the NPVI-V, so varying from 35 up to 55. If we take a look at the variability of the duration of consonantal intervals, again, here you can see our results as well as the arrows representing our expectations. We found no significant correlation between these variables and the rating scores, and this is as expected. So let me sum up our findings. First of all, we found a significant correlation between syllable rate and rating scores. This is why we opted for normalized rhythm metrics. We found significant correlations between measurements of vowel variability and rating scores, and this indicates that speakers that are perceived as speaking more multiethnolectal Zurich German presumably show less vowel reduction in unstressed syllables, and our results confirm the impression of a staccato rhythm, so of this more syllable time rhythm as opposed to traditional Zurich German. We found no correlations between measurements of consonantal variability and rating scores, and as I've said before, we have very similar consonant cluster complexity for all our speakers, and usually differences here depend on consonant cluster complexity. I say very similar because we have, although speakers read the same sentences, we did not analyze exactly the same sentences per speaker, as we have excluded different ones for some of them. In addition, we did not find a significant correlation between person V and the rating scores, despite person V being an acoustic correlate of syllable structure complexity. Our results suggest again that this is similar for all speakers. The involved mother tongues, as we've seen some of them, have different rhythmic properties. However, syllable time rhythm seems to be part of the multiethnolectal Zurich German feature pool, which speakers make use of independently of their mother tongue. So a feature pool here refers to something that consists of linguistic forms influenced by a wide variety of languages, dialects, and so on, and speakers can make use of these features regardless of whether they are present in their mother tongues or not. Last but not least, the negative correlation we found between syllable rate and rating scores is in line with a pilot study in which the multiethnolectal speaker showed a lower articulation rate than the speaker of traditional Zurich German, here in terms of segments per second. So maybe this is another phonetic feature of multiethnolectal Zurich German. Of course, this has to be analyzed further. Some other directions of future research. As we've seen, these findings are based on read speech, which probably also affected rhythmic properties. However, a comparison of our results to a smaller set of more spontaneous speech is planned to see if we can find similar trends. And a phonetic investigation of multiethnolectal Swiss German needs to include segmental features as well, because there is reason to assume that segmental features, such as voicing of lean plosives and so on, that they also contribute to the makeup of multiethnolectal speech. And so this is why an investigation of the relative weight of various segmental and suprasegmental features in the perception of multiethnolectal speech is planned, and to see whether these features are used as sociophonetic markers in the sense of Labov. So we would like to thank all the speakers, the raters, and their teachers for the participation in these studies. And I would also like to thank you very much for your attention. So if you have any questions or feedback, please get in touch. Here you can see our references. Pause the video if you need to have a closer look at them, and have a great day. Bye.